Hey guys, it's Amber with NotableInk.com and I'm back with Altenew for their Paint-a-Flower Iris release. So this is actually the first Paint-a-Flower that I've done and I love it. So here you can see the trifold. It has lots of inspiration on the inside as well as other products that you can pair it with. And then also in this release, they're releasing a watercolor paper set. This is A2 size cold press watercolor paper. It's 50% cotton. It has just a slight amount of texture on the surface. And then they also have a watercolor paper pad. That's your 9 by 12. It's also a bright white color. And this one has just a little bit more texture on it. It's also cold press paper. They're also releasing their Watercolors Essentials set. So this is 12 half pans, vibrant and smooth watercolors. It comes in this metal tin. And then the pans are circular. So they come out, and so you can remove the colors that you want if you want to work with them individually or also work with them in the pan. You can see that I've already had a play with them. And what I went ahead and did for you guys is I swatched them. So I want to compare them to the 24 pan artist watercolor set that they also released recently. So you can see a difference in the packaging. These are also half pans and just a different shape for the pan. And then I've gone ahead and swatched both of the sets out side by side so that you can see them. So those are the essential set, and then on the left is the artist watercolor set. And so it's really up to you whether you just want a few colors or if you want to have the versatility of having more colors without having to mix them. The shades are equally as beautiful. I did find that the yellow, green, gray, and blue were a little less pigmented in their color compared to similar colors in the artist color set. So you can see the two yellows there and then those two blues. So let's start painting so you can see them in action. I have a piece of the watercolor paper set, which is the A2 size cold press paper in the Misty, and I'm inking up the stamp with Citrus Burst Crisp Dye ink. I'm rehydrating the watercolors with a pipette of water, and I'm going to start mixing some purple here. I'm mixing a little bit of the brown into the purple, and you could also mix a little of the green. Basically what I want to do is dull down that purple just a little bit. So I'm rehydrating the yellow, and I'm going to create a variegated iris. If you follow me on Instagram or on YouTube, then you may have seen a recent digital stamp that I colored. It was also an iris, and I did this same variegated flower where the majority of the petals were yellow, and then two or three of the petals had these variegated purple lines with yellow edges. And so I wanted to see if I could recreate that look in the watercolor. So I'm painting with a fine tip Altenew water brush here, and once I start mixing more colors, I end up just keeping the brush that I was using to mix, and I continue painting with that. And I'm going to add those stripes over here. While I'm doing that, let me talk a little bit about my setup here. So over the next few videos, you're going to see probably a little bit of shaking to the camera and then also some differences in the lighting. I recently gave up my craft room to my 10-year-old daughter. So I have three daughters, 12, 10, and 9, and the two youngest have shared a room for years now. It was really time for them to have their own room. So Cora moved down to my craft room. I moved all my craft room stuff into the living room. And right now I just have a temporary camera mount set up, which is obviously shaking. At the time that I voice recorded this, I already have a permanent camera set up. So you're going to see that improve over the next couple of videos. But I just wanted to mention that. So back to the card. So I put a washed out version of the yellow on all of the yellow petals, and then I mixed a little bit of the orange and the yellow, and I'm starting to add some shadows. So as I continue to add a mix of yellow and orange to add shadows, I wasn't liking the color of the petals. These flowers are super, super vibrant, bright yellow. There's not really orange in them. So I wasn't too thrilled with the color combination that I was using. I made the variegated lines a little bit darker with some more of the purple paint, and then I moved on to the leaves. And I'm not totally thrilled with how it's looking right now. As I'm looking back on it through here, it doesn't look too bad. It just looks a little flat to me. There's not a lot of detail to the image because I've put the paint on so thickly. I've applied it so thickly. And so I'm thinking about what I want to do, and I decide to spray it with water. And I liked the look of that. I probably sprayed it 1 or 2 times too many. I think I sprayed it 4 times. So here, all of the green was running off of the page. So I'm just holding up that corner, trying to keep some of that green on as I dry it with the heat tool. I'm using my bone folder to try and flatten out the paper a little bit. And then I thought, okay, well, let me add a little bit of the outline back so that there's some structure. And I totally stamped it in the wrong place. It should have been lined up in the top corner. So then I do it again, and I'm like, okay, that looks maybe a little bit better, but it's weird that there's yellow lines at the bottom, so I turn those green. So I really like parts of this, like the top of the iris petals, the yellow up there. I love how it's all bursting out, and I even like the extra outline I have up there, but I don't like the bottom half. And so I decided to add a little bit of purple to those, and then I got purple where there should be yellow, so I'm trying to lift that off. And at this point, I was like, okay, let me tear the edges. That'll take your focus away from the flower a little bit. So I just put a ruler and tore off 1/4 inch. I went ahead with my sentiment, which was don't give up, keep going, which is exactly what I was doing. And then I set this aside because I was like, I just don't like the bottom half. Ultimately, I decided to grab my color pencils and add some depth of color and also some shadow to those yellow petals so that you could tell what it was that you were looking at. And this I liked so much more. So I like the combination of the loose, just like the water kind of like bursting out the iris at the top. There you can see that double stamped image, and then adding the color pencil I think really helped it come together. So before I added the color pencil to that image, I set it aside and completed this entire alcohol marker card that we're going to do. So I've stamped it in permanent black ink, and then I'm going to go ahead and heat set it because I don't like to wait for anything to dry. So I'll go ahead and heat set it so that I can get started coloring. So here I have the rose petal markers, and I'm going to Copic color this. So this is my happy place. I feel like there's a lot, at least I have a lot more control with alcohol markers. Now, just short of a year ago, I didn't really consider myself a strong colorist. In fact, as the Altenew anniversary blog hop comes around, that's what that blog post was about last year. That was like one of the first cards that I felt like, oh my gosh, I can actually color. Like this turned out really well. And I had surprised myself. So now looking at this card, as a result of the watercolor and being uncomfortable with that, it was really cool to think that, okay, alcohol markers are my happy place. That's where I'm most comfortable at this point, is with alcohol markers on flowers. So that's a pretty cool transformation, I think. So I'm using the same formula I always do on flowers, which is to put shadow at the base where the petals overlap, and also where there are any creases in the petals, where the artist has indicated that there's creases. I actually didn't do too much of the shading at the tips of the petals on this particular flower because there's so many areas where it overlaps. I didn't necessarily feel like it was necessary. So for the stamens, I'll use the Summer Afternoon yellow markers, and then for the green stem and leaves, I'm going to use the Tropical Forest markers. I've used these two sets quite a bit lately, and maybe it's just because they're out on my desk, but they're really easy to blend. And then I'm just going to use the black marker. I'll use the bullet nib and just run some stripes up the side of this and then also across the bottom. I created the same stripe pattern on a digital stamp that I recently colored, only I put the stripes in digitally through Photoshop. So it's kind of fun to see card designs go from digital to all handmade and vice versa. You can use the same techniques in both areas and things transfer pretty seamlessly from medium to medium. All the sentiments were stamped in obsidian pigment ink, and here's the final card. And I love how this turned out. It's clean, it's simple. It's my happy place. I added a few purple dots to the stamens just to add a little bit of texture to those. And I didn't embellish it at all. So here you can see the two cards together. Now ultimately, I really do love how the watercolor irises came out once I added the color pencil to it. I think what it was really lacking was just some depth in the shadow areas. And so once I added a little bit of structure to those, I really did like that card. Be sure to join us on the blog hop and leave comments along the way so that you're in for a chance to win a gift certificate to shop Altenew. I hope that you enjoyed these projects today. If you liked this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified of new inspiration. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon.